everyone, this is Kyle Bohannon with another episode of the Art of Physical Fitness show. Today I have the Elliott Hulse of HulseStrength.com, Strengthology.net, and nonjob.com. Elliott, a lot of people already know who you are, but for those who don't, tell us why they should care about what you have to say for today's interview.
Why should you care? Well, I've never been asked that before. Why should you care? You know what? I don't really care if you care or don't care about what I have to offer, but I will share with you why I offer what I offer. And that's because I've always been an athletic person. I come from a family that is grounded in health, strength, and athletics, and was fortunate enough to have an amazing mentor as young as when I was 4 years old, which is my uncle. Taught me how to strength train when I was just a kid. He was in martial arts, and he taught me and my brothers how to do, push-ups and chin-ups and climbing ropes and sit-ups and cool stuff like that at a very early age in our early part of our development. And I went on to earn a college scholarship to play football and studied exercise physiology in grad school and went on to become a professional strongman. And now I teach people how to grow stronger. One of the experiences that I had that gives me impetus to share what I do through the internet was a really bad injury that I had maybe about 4 years ago, where I was developing my strength to become one of the best. I was poised to be the strongest in my weight class in the sport of strongman. I would have been America's strongest 231 pounder. And I took my pursuit of strength just a little too far in an unbalanced way and tore my bicep. And when that happened, I come to realize, discover it, and was motivated to share this idea that there's far more than just physical strength that we need to focus on. At that time, I was poised to be the strongest in America, and yet my life wasn't what it possibly could be. It wasn't nearly as awesome as it is right now, and my strength is far more balanced because I realize and teach people that there are actually 4 layers of strength, each which build on top of each other. And I'm going to start with the deepest, which is energetic strength. And that's just my cool way of saying what you think, what's going on in your mind, the ideas that you have been presented, the ideas that you cultivate, harbor, and develop all contribute to the strength of your physiology and your neuromuscular strength. You can't be a physically strong person if you've got bad ideas or unresourceful ideas. And there's so much more to that I'll share with you later, but that brings us to physiological strength, which you may have spoken a little bit with my brother about, and that is how your digestive system is functioning, how your hormones are functioning. It doesn't matter how much you could bench press if you've got GERD and you're constipated, and you've got stage 3 adrenal fatigue. All these things will eventually summate to you collapsing. You're never going to be your best if you're ignoring that layer of your strength. On top of that is your neuromuscular strength, the most obvious one, the one that we always work on as bodybuilders and powerlifters and strongmen and strength trainers, personal trainers. This is the most superficial layer. It's an expression of what's going on in the deeper layers, but many times we take an imbalanced approach by focusing just on the most superficial layer. And that's what I wanted to make sure people understood, was that there's a physiological and there's an energetic foundation for all of this. The 4th layer of strength is what I call presentable strength. And the project that I use to teach presentable strength is the non-jobs campaign that you were talking about. And that's basically, you're becoming the strongest version of yourself. You're growing stronger physically, physiologically, energetically. What are you going to do now? It's not just for you. Your strength is for everyone. You present your strength to the world, and you are a present to the world when you discover the means by which you go out and spread the strength that you're developing.
Now, going back to neuromuscular strength, I had a fan when I posted on Facebook that I was going to have this interview. He wanted me to ask you, you speak of, in some of your videos, avoiding attachment to any certain things, and he wanted to know, how do you avoid becoming attached to the neuromuscular strength component of the 4 layers?
Well, you could take the path that I took, which was to develop it in an imbalanced way, basically focus all your energy and strength on developing your neuromuscular system in absence of the others, and then watch it tear. Do you see? So you can become very attached to it, and a big part of the reason why I do what I do is so that I can show people the way without having to make the mistakes that I make. You can focus on that, but eventually you're going to get to a point where you will experience the fact that it is just one of multiple layers. In fact, it is the most sensitive or most fragile of all layers. It can be easily torn. I mean, all it takes is for you to get hit by a bus and break both legs, and you see just how powerful your neuromuscular strength actually is. But if you've cultivated a very strong energetic strength and your physiology is strong, you'll not only bounce back physically because your physiology is strong, but you will cultivate a stronger character because of the situation due to a strong energetic strength. So to avoid attachment, sometimes you have to have it handed to you. You know, it's like, here, it's not all what you thought it was, and tragedy strikes. But if you're looking to take a different approach, an easier approach, one that I'm offering, which isn't the one that I probably wouldn't learn via this approach. I'm a person that needs to experience things in order to actually embody them. But to avoid the attachment to one, consider that there are four. And always focus on and look for ways that they're tied together.
Awesome. Building off of neuromuscular strength, you talk a lot about the role of the nervous system, but both developing strength, but also I've been reading a book lately, The Body Electric. I'm not sure if you've read that book before, but basically just the importance of the nervous system and how it plays pretty much the crucial role in controlling our entire bodies. So go into that a little deeper about your beliefs on training the nervous system, on not just physically in the neuromuscular strength sense, but also in the dealing with sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system control and things of that nature.
Well, you can think of the nervous system as the tie that binds the first three layers of strength together. You've got the neuromuscular system on the most superficial, then your physiological strength, and then your energetic strength. And beginning with the deepest idea, which is your energetic strength, you consider that the mind, the brain, the head brain, which is the one we most often point to, is the powerhouse by which all the others are expressed. Your head brain also extends itself down into your body via the spinal cord and into the peripheral nervous system, which innervates all of your organs. So to consider that the head brain, you know, your ideas, your thought, your character, your behavior, to consider that it is isolated from that which it innervates through your peripheral nervous system is silly. You also consider that those innervations cross into the musculoskeletal system. So your brain literally is in your muscles. It's in your liver. It's in your stomach. So when considering how to go about training your body, and it's one unit. I look at this whole thing as one unit tied together via the nervous system. You've got to consider what's happening at that level, what's happening at the central nervous system level, and what's happening at the peripheral nervous system level. If what's happening in your head brain and happening in your body brain is imbalanced in any way, shape, or form, it's going to express itself physiologically. So, for example, if you're like most of us, a neurotic person, and you're pretty stressed out about the credit card bills that are piling up, and paying your rent, and your child is sick, all of those are images. Those are all ideas. They're all forms that are coming into your mind, but they are expressed physiologically by a sympathetic response. Your heart rate goes up. Your eyes dilate. Your muscular system tightens up. You shrug your shoulders. You shorten your breath. Your breath becomes far more shallow when you're under that type of stress. So right away we see how what's happening in the quote-unquote mind is affecting us physiologically. And it will ultimately affect us neuromuscularly, because if you are dealing with sympathetic overload because of all the stress that you're perceiving and dealing with in a unresourceful fashion, you become catabolic. Your muscles will not grow. You will tend to store fat. So you can see right away how the root issue is what's happening in the mind. And when I say mind, I'm talking about the entire thing, the entire nervous system.
Okay. Now, you talk about it, this kind of goes into it, breathing into your balls. What do you mean by that? Breathing into your balls. People don't know your videos too well and don't know what you mean by that.
Well, your energetic strength, the function of your nervous system, which is will dictate the function of everything else that we just described, is inhibited by an inability to breathe deep, right? Hold your breath for 30 seconds. You start to waver a little bit. Hold your breath for a minute, 2 minutes. You'll knock out. The brain needs a lot of oxygen. What happens is, because of our neurotic tendencies and the way we respond to our environment, we end up having what Wilhelm Reich called muscular armoring, right? And this is basically where, this happens when you're under a stressful situation and your shoulders tighten up, or you pull your belly in. A lot of people hold their belly in tight when under stress, or if there's a lot of anxiety. You'll notice a lot of people grind their teeth, right? Or they fold their jaws very, 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 very tight, right. Or they get headaches because there's tension in the head. These are all muscular holding patterns, or what I call neurotic holding patterns. They're how you are responding to the stress that's coming in, and they become chronic. We don't know that we're doing it, right? We don't know. Oftentimes, you look at an individual who is responding to a stressful situation, and when I say stressful situation, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lion attacking you or that your boss is yelling at you. It could simply be just the way you're thinking about the circumstances in your life, or a leftover response from experiences that you had when you were younger, right? We have experiences when we were younger that then become habitual. If every time you spilled something, your mom screamed at you and yelled at you and was like, I'm going to tear your head off, you're a crazy, bad kid, then you start tiptoeing through life, and literally tiptoeing through life. Your body becomes very constricted and tiptoe-ish, and you're always trying to avoid mistakes. You're looking around, you're fearful, constantly fearful, not to say the wrong thing, not to do the wrong thing, and that is a defense that you learned when you were young in order to deal with your crazy neurotic mother. Right? That physically manifests itself in the tightening of the musculature in the body. So what happens is, when those muscles become chronically tight through the neurotic holding patterns around the eyes, around the jaw, around the throat and chest, or across the belly and the pelvic floor, it restricts our ability to breathe deep. If you watch a newborn baby breathe, as it's laying on its back, its whole body is like a wave. Every time it inhales, right down to his genitals are expanding with softness as the diaphragm drops down into the abdominal cavity and pushes the organs down. There's a softness associated with their breathing that is manifested through the lack of tension in the muscular system, right? The baby's soft enough that it can breathe easily. Well, that only lasts so long until we start responding to our environment and we get tight, we get tight, we get tight, we get tight, right down into the pelvic floor, right into the basin there where what the Chinese would call your lower dantian, where basically is where your sex organs are. And I say balls, breathe into your balls, because it just sounds funny, but there's a lot of thought behind it. So when I invite people to breathe into their balls, number one, it is a proposition to recognize that you're not breathing deep enough. None of us are. And that there is muscular tension across the bands of your face, your neck and chest, your belly and your pelvic floor that is restricting your ability to breathe deep. It's also a solution because I offer people different methods for softening the musculature of the face, of the chest and neck, the belly, and the pelvic floor. And that comes through different stretches and bioenergetic exercises that I talk about often in my newsletters and on my YouTube videos. And I'm working on a video course right now that's all about helping people breathe into their balls by breaking up the neurotic holding patterns that are sucking us of vitality in life.
Now, do you think, going back to a baby who you're saying doesn't have any of those patterns developed at this point, is that state the optimal state that we are designed in a way to be at, and then these external things that we have going on that we respond to as we grow and we adapt to are sort of enemies, if you will, for lack of a better term right now. But is that more the ideal state, and we just lose that as we grow?
It's funny. I've heard this saying once before, and it's been meant. It's meant in a different context than the one that I'm going to share with you right now. But listen, my father used to say, "Once a man, twice a baby." Right? So as a person evolves, they're a baby. They grow through manhood, but they come back to being a baby. And when he would say that, and I think the way the saying was intended was that, you know, you're helpless as a baby, you become a man, and then you're helpless as an old person who is reaching for the grave. Do you see?
Yeah.
But the way I like to describe it here is that you start out fresh. You're tabla, what do they say? Tabla rasa. You're a clean slate, uncarved block, as the Taoist would say. You start out perfect. But in order to make your way in the world, we're taught all these different abstract ideas that help us navigate the society which we're in. And we all know that, you know, everybody wants to talk about what's the truth. Truth. Well, really, the only truth is that which resides in your body. Everything else has been taught to us. Everything else is basically an idea. Because if you go from culture to culture, or if you go from generation to generation, the truth changes. Right? They're all abstract. They're all simply ideas, and it's not right or wrong. And I want to get to that point very, very quickly. There's no right or wrong. It's just what it is. That's we happen to be living in the United States of America in 2013 under this economic climate, under this social climate, and there are ways of being that are resourceful for getting about. Right? They're resourceful for getting about in life, but they also sully the pureness of the baby's body, the baby's mind-body, do you see? And it slowly builds upon us by adding layers of dysfunctional neuromuscular, physiological, and energetic crap, right? So you go through your life, you start out fresh, and then you make your way in the world, and you pick up all this baggage, but in my mind, the object is to pick up the baggage to learn how to navigate this thing that we're playing. But then quickly, when you start to realize what is needed and what is not needed, because a lot of it is not needed. There's some of it that you realize, like Bruce Lee would say, you know, take what's useful and get rid of the rest. There are pieces that are like, this is very useful. We call these principles, and really, we're conditioned with tens of thousands of different ideas, but there are a handful of principles. And it's our life's mission to extract the very few principles that reside in all of the shit that's shoved down our throat. As you embark upon life and you're bombarded with these 10,000 different abstract ideas that weigh heavily on all of our systems, you begin to, if you're an aware person, you begin to extract the principles, just the ones that matter. And then you don't have to carry as much, and you have the time and the emotional resources to come back to the softness associated with your true being. And that's when we start working on becoming the strongest version of ourselves. That's when we start to realize, you know what, I am neurotic. I'm not breathing deep. You know, my physiological strength is weak because I realize that every time I take a poop, it's diarrhea. For the past year, I've had loose poop. And I have to drink 4 cups of coffee to keep my eyeballs open at work. And every time I get into a relationship with a woman or a man, I tend to destroy it. I can't hold down a good relationship. I can't seem to make enough money. These are all different things that you start to recognize, like, you know, there's probably some bullshit in here that needs to go. And you embark upon a journey to coming back to your roots. And you become a baby again, not in your immaturity. It's a totally different experience. You become a baby again in the pureness of your intent and the innocence by which, and when I say innocence, I don't mean like ignorance innocence, like you're a stupid kid. I mean innocence in that now you're living from your heart once again, and you go out into the world and you have the tools associated with sharing, but also without being bombarded with all the neurotic tendencies that most people proceed with.
100% agree with you there. I've been getting a lot of questions lately from fans talking about dealing with training itself, and they get so caught up in all the million different ideas that exist out there for training and theories and beliefs and conjugate and West Side and CrossFit and all this stuff, and they get so tied to these ideas, like you're saying, that get thrown around, and they end up confused all to hell about what is that exactly the right path. And I just tell them the right path is something, it's something within you. There's no one else that can tell you what your path is, and there's no program or goals that you need to be setting for yourself that you need to tie yourself to. Rather, just experience the process of going through your own training, experience your body, observe what is happening, and fluctuate based on what you feel and what you experience during that time. So let's move. It's kind of going back before you were talking about gut health a little bit. I saw I think it was actually a post by your brother on your blog at one point, but go into gut health and how it can impact the whole body. I know you've talked about it a lot.
Well, it's interesting. Scientists have discovered that there are just as many or more neurotransmitters in the enteric nervous system than your brain, your head brain. That basically means to say that you've got a thinking brain. Now, it's not the conscious thinking brain that we calculate with, that's attached to symbols and time as our head brain is, but it's a brain that beats your heart for you, that digests your food for you, that grows a baby inside a woman, right? And I'm not referring just to the enteric nervous system. I'm talking about the entire peripheral nervous system. You know, it's this other brain that does what you need to have done to live without you having to do it. You're not dilating your eyes when it becomes dark, but you are, right? There's a brilliance in that part of our nervous system, and it is just as breathing is essential to life. Food, digestion, the energy that charges our body is essential for all of these processes to happen. And that's why there's such a powerful network of thinkers within your belly, within your gut, within your enteric nervous system, and all these neurotransmitters that are literally thinking for you without you having to think about it. When I say you, I do this because who are you really? Right. The thing is that although we consider the fact is that nothing that's inside our body is only inside our body. We are working with the environment, you know. So you might think these are my thoughts, these are the things I'm thinking about, these are my ideas. Well, no, not really, because you started out empty, and these are all things that came in from the environment. So we're really permeable in that regard. And thoughts are a bit more abstract, but when you start considering what you put in your body, now think of it this way. What I just described, you realize how much it affects you. Think about what you're putting into that brain in your belly. I'm eating food. Now, if you're eating food that is highly toxic, that's newfangled, which basically means like the human body has not experienced it, is not designed for it, you know, for the tens of thousands of years that we've been here, or however long we've been here, we haven't adjusted to eating plastic, for example. There are lots of plastics in our food, you know, petroleum. It's like it's getting inside our body. So that part of your brain doesn't work properly. If you consider that, like, if you're being exposed to bad ideas, right? If you're being exposed to violence consistently, you're going to be a violent person. If you're exposing your enteric nervous system, your second brain, to unresourceful, damaging, toxic foods, you'll see that your digestive system, which feeds all your other systems, is going to be off. You see, so when most people start talking about nutrition, it's usually like my macros, you know, balancing my macros, and you know, different bodybuilding methods for leaning up and stuff like that. When I talk about it, I'm describing how the quality and the quantity of the resources by which you're charging all the systems of your body. You see, even your thoughts will be affected. Consider the head brain and the enteric nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, are linked together. If you're eating foods that have bad energy, there's bad ideas in that food. And when I say that, it's a bit abstract, but you can see what I'm saying. You know, like there's nothing good in a Twinkie. You could see how it'll affect your physiology, but also your nervous system energetically. You cannot be energetically strong. You cannot be mentally strong if you're eating shitty food. So I tend to think far beyond just balancing your macronutrients to have a leaner, better looking body, but also consider the quality by which this food is being prepared and ingested.
And I believe that this might have been a while ago, and it might have been a blog post, an email you sent out or something, and you talked about how you were, at that point, I don't know if you're still this way, that you were eating probably pretty low on calories is concerned, but you were feeling great. You were just more so just eating the right types of food, and you weren't concerning yourself with the number. Is this something you're still doing, where you're still pretty much under your maintenance calories per se? Or how do you go about your own nutrition, if you will?
Well, what I'm doing right now is, and here I go contradicting myself. I'm telling you about what I really am interested in, right, and then what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm embarking upon what it takes to balance your macros in order to have a leaner body. It's never been anything that's of great interest to me. It's never been anything that I really cared about. To me, I was always interested in eating the right foods and keeping your body fit. You know, I didn't care so much about having very low body fat percentage, although my body fat percentage has never been really high. But just out of curiosity and out of, just something new to learn, a new experience for me, something else that I could share with people, I hired a friend who's a bodybuilder. And he gave me macronutrients that are fit specifically for keeping me strong, but also helping me reduce as much body fat as possible, get as lean or as cut as possible. And I can say that I feel great by doing so. And again, I've done many different things, and I've invited people to partake of many of the different things that I've done. This just happens to be something new that I'm doing. It's only been the past 4 weeks or so, and it's good. I like the fact that that I have to be very mindful of when I'm eating. This wasn't something that I paid very much attention to. I would often do intermittent fasting and maybe not eat for a day. As well as being disciplined about tracking numbers. I've never wanted to do this, and I've never done it before. And it's so far so good. It's fun. I can tell you that on the days that my calories are low and my work volume is high, I'm like I don't feel so great. But I'm doing it to reach a particular goal, and once that goal is met, I'm just going to go back to where I was before.
Now, do you think that could be going back to days where you realize your stuff isn't met and you're high volume, you're not feeling it? Do you feel a part of that could be mental? You realize I haven't eaten that much, and you go into your training and be like, I'm not going to feel it today because I haven't been eating as much as I should. Do you feel that's a part of it, or that you relate it to the food?
You know, the cool thing about, I'm going to sound a little arrogant here, but the cool thing about my life is that I dabble in almost everything. I like to experience stuff. I like to challenge myself. And I look at a spectrum of what could happen. And usually most people are on one end of the spectrum or the other, right, and they hate each other. It's like, I'm a this and you're a that. And what I like to do is hop on one end of the spectrum and then go all the way to the other one. That way I can say, you know what, you guys are saying the same shit, and right, this is good and that's good. So I have the experience of what it's like to be very full of glycogen all the time and to be growing and getting stronger and bigger. And I ballooned up to almost 260 at one point, and it was like I was a monster. And I did that coming from 190 pounds. And I blew all the way up, and then I'm coming back down again. So when I offer my experiences, my current experiences, it's merely in contrast to the other extremes that I've experienced. So to say that that I don't feel good because of the lack of calories, you got to recognize that I'm comparing that to what it feels like to eat 5,000 calories a day and like muscle milk and creatine and stuff like that. So of course I feel weaker. I don't feel as strong. I'm not as strong as I was when I just eating whatever crossed my path.
Going back to the digestive discussion we were just having, you were talking about eating the right foods. This is kind of going to the dogmatic talk you just brought up as well. But some people would lend themselves to believe that you are in favor of the paleo diet. Again, are we getting dogmatic here, one side of the spectrum or the other? But do you consider paleo your basic premise of what you do, or no, am I off base here?
Well, before I answer that, it's funny. You're going to listen to me, and if you've been following me for a while, you'll see that I contradict myself over and over and over and over again. I'll say one thing, and then in the next breath, say something else. And it's because of what I just shared with you. It's my traversing these spectrums and playing with many different ideas. And that's kind of just the way I live my life. I don't get caught up in what's right and what's wrong. I get caught up in my experiences. Everything that I offer you is purely subjective. And I invite you to subjectively, or subject yourself so that you can have subjective experiences as opposed to what you're reading or what someone else is telling you, you see? So for example, last week I put up one video where there was a guy who had low sex drive and he had a vegan diet. And I was like, yeah, no duh, you have low sex drive because you don't eat any meat. You don't have the vitamins associated with sexuality. Right. Now, that's not to say that that might not be the case for everyone, but for you, clearly, you're not eating meat, you can't sleep, and your dick won't get hard. Something's wrong. And he went on to start eating meat. All of a sudden, his dick's getting hard and he can sleep. It didn't take a scientist to figure that out. It's like, things are going bad. You made a change, and now things are going good, right? So basically, in that video, I asserted to the fact that, like, this vegan diet clearly is not working for you, so stop doing it. And, all the vegans came out and they were like, Elliott, why are you talking bad about vegans? And, I found my name on a forum the other day and they were like attacking the shit out of me. Like, this guy, he's against our religion. He's against our cult. We got to get him. 2 days later, I made a video where I just told a kid who had acne, real bad acne. I said, look, you should probably do a vegan cleanse, spend a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks on a vegan diet. The reason why I offer that is because I realize that there's validity to cleansing your body for a period of time because of my experience. I've tried this with a vegan diet. I don't remember the exact question you asked me, but my point is that I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think that there are many different ideas. Oh, okay, I remember your question. There are many different ideas that may or may not be resourceful for you. One idea, though, that I happen to be holding pretty tightly to, right? And again, for me, this is all abstract. I'm holding on to it tight, but I guarantee you, one day I can let it go. Right. It doesn't own me. Ideas don't own me. I play with them. And I like this one. Is based on the work of Weston A. Price. And you may be familiar with the work of Weston Price. He was a scientist and a dentist in post-World War II, like during the brinks of the Industrial Revolution in the United States, I think like in the 1920s or something like that. He started to notice that his patients were having like really screwed up craniofacial postures, like the bones in their face were shrinking, and it was causing an onset of needing braces, which he never saw. He had been a practitioner of the dental arts for decades, and then all of a sudden, like, whoa, kids are needing braces. And he decided to do some research and discovered that he traveled the world to study different indigenous tribes to see what they were eating. And he took extensive notes in this book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And he describes the character of these people, and he also describes the physical structure of these people. And one of the things he recognized was that there were no facial deformities. Their teeth were always, their jaws were always wide and sweeping. Their skulls were always round and full. Their teeth were always straight. Right? And he wanted to know why. And what he discovered through his journeys was that those societies that had meat products in their diet, now it didn't mean that they ate only meat or they ate lots of it, but they sought out the fat-soluble vitamins that are found only in meat and meat byproducts to feed their children, to feed their nursing women, and to provide strength for the men. Right? Totally objective. This is just what he discovered. He wasn't trying to prove a point. In fact, in the book, at one point, he says, I was hoping to find a strictly vegetarian, a healthy, strictly vegetarian tribe. He really wanted to, but he could not. And he contrasted not only the people that ate the meat-based diets to those that ate vegetarian-only diets, and found that there was a broad difference in health, strength, and spirituality, but then obviously compared it to the standard Western contemporary diet and showed how, it's our diets that's destroying our bodies. So when you ask me, do I lean towards paleo? It's simply because of the work done by Weston A. Price, and it has been yet to be refuted. People will try to attack his ideas, but if you read the book, you realize, oh my God, this guy did some brilliant research.
Okay. Now I know you've been talking about lately, especially you had a video out with, I believe you had a little lines from Osho, but when your recent video, you're doing a lot of front squats. You've been talking about front squats a lot lately. This is a fan question of why do you not believe in, but you have this idea over front squats as opposed to, say, back squats at this moment.
Well, all you got to do is if you take a look at yourself and me, Kyle, right now, we're both sitting, right? And as we sit, and I'm leaning over my desk so I can look into the computer. And a lot of times we're doing this all day long. We carry backpacks, our children. We're sitting, slouching as we watch TV. We're constantly destroying our posture through overflexion, right? We're always overflexed, and it is the path of least resistance, because if you study embryology, we come from a curled up position in the womb, right? Flexion is not our natural position, but there's least resistance to flexion, right? Somebody's tired. But flexion also stifles our ability to breathe deep. It destroys our ability to digest food. And if you simply just put yourself in this type of position, you energetically feel low energy, depressed, tired. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You walk around like this. You take on the character. So in my mind, the very first purpose of exercise is to build structural integrity. And that would mean a strong posture. That means the vertebrae of your spine should be properly aligned. You want all of your discs to be centralized. You want to be upright and tall. Exercises that force thoracic extension, in my mind, should be at the pinnacle, should be at the top, or better yet, at the foundation of exercise programming. So deadlifts done properly that force thoracic extension go right to the top of my list. And the reason why deadlifts and front squat are at the top of that list is because they're integrated exercises. They require all of your body. You could say that, bent over rows might force thoracic extension. Yeah, but it doesn't stimulate the entire body the same way that a deadlift or a front squat does. As opposed to back squats. See, most people, if you axial load, if you press down on the spine of an individual, when I say axial load, I mean you're pushing down on their head or very high up on their spine, all their muscular imbalances start showing themselves. The hyperlordosis of the low back, or the hypolordosis of the low back, the excessive curvature of the upper back. You see people back squatting like this. All the imbalances become magnified when you add resistance or weight bearing to the axial spine, to the body. So back squats are cool, but back squats aren't going to support you in correcting postural imbalances. Front squats force you to present with thoracic extension. You can't do a front squat with a rounded upper back because the bar will fall, or you'll try to hold it and you'll hurt your wrist. You literally have to draw your chest up, which means that you've got to have supple abdominal muscles. Your upper abdominals can't be tight. Also means that your pec minor and your upper trapezius can't be tight. All those muscles need to be mobile enough to allow you to hold the bar in that position, and so on and so forth throughout the entire body. So that's why I say that if you're going to squat, the very first type of squat to do in order to build structural integrity would be your front squat.
Okay. Another fan question. Plateaus. Now, I believe he's talking just in training perspective as far as plateaus and how to overcome them. But if you want to elaborate further, just my interjection question of how do you overcome plateaus in your life and the non-neuromuscular layer of strength?
Well, before we talked about principles, and as you you start out as a baby, you pick up all this shit, but you find out that there are just a handful of principles, and then you come back. One of the principles that you're going to discover that works, and the reason why it's a principle is because it applies to everything. It applies to the development of your neuromuscular strength, physiological strength, energetic strength, any and everything that you do. You could usually take one principle and you apply it. And there's one principle, and I'm not going to give it a particular name, but it's an idea, is that everything in life changes, right? I wish I could remember. Did you ever read the book, the Kabbalion?
No, never even heard of it.
Okay, it's based on Hermetic philosophy. But basically, this is the book of principles. Like, if you want the book of the principles, this is like, it says base as you get. Like, these are the principles. And one of those, I'm trying to remember how he describes it, but it's the law of change. Nothing is static.
Right.
And although we build habitual patterns, we do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? Based on, ideas of the mind. We do this thing, we do this thing, we do this thing, we do this thing. But environments are changing. Physiologically, we're changing. That part of our brain that thinks without us thinking is changing. We're changing, And if we keep doing the same thing, and the environment and circumstances are changing that are completely out of our grasp, we can end up in a rut. We can end up in a place where we didn't evolve properly. Things are moving, but you're still doing the same dumb shit.
Right.
You see, and it may not. I say dumb shit because it's not working anymore, but it may be resourceful to you at one particular time. Right? You doing this exercise or behaving in this particular fashion was resourceful for you a year ago. But guess what? It's 365 days later, and now you're in a rut because you're still doing the same shit, but the environment intrinsically and extrinsically has changed. So what you've got to do is step back and look around at how can I adjust things. Now, you might not know the right way to adjust things, but I always say that any change is better than no change. Start experimenting with what you might need to do in order to continue to progress. If that means changing the volume of your workouts, if that means changing the tempo of your exercise, if it means changing the frequency of your workouts, if it means dumping your girlfriend, whatever it is, you need to do something so you can get out of that rut. I often say, and one of my idea that I have is that depression is a function of not doing something that you know you should be doing, which is usually based off of the fear of not changing or the fear of change, or you're doing something that you probably shouldn't be doing anymore. Maybe you shouldn't have been doing it to begin with, or it's no longer resourceful. So you've got to change. You got to go do something.
Okay. Going to shift the discussion more to business sides for any of the business owners out there, fitness business owners, or anyone looking to start you talk about the non-job. Let's first get into your non-job campaign and then a couple questions that people were asking me to ask you.
Okay, well, briefly, it is the fourth of the 4 layers of strength, which is now how are you going to share? How you're developing yourself, but not for yourself. We develop ourselves for those who we impact, because you're going to die. We all die. That's just part of the deal here. But while you're here, might as well send out some positive vibes. Might as well change people's lives for the better. Spread ideas, right? Why not? I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be the next Jesus or Mother Teresa, but you're here, might as well do the best that you can with what you've got. And I offer that in the layer of strength called presentable strength. And I say presentable, and it's a play on words because it's, well, how are you presenting yourself? Your basically your presentation to the world, and what kind of present are you giving to the world? What kind of gift are you giving to the world so that when you leave, there's a legacy? The way that's played out, the way that works out is with what I've called the non-job campaign, but now I've changed it to the non-job revolution because the campaign's over because we've got over 5,000 subscribers. I mean, no more campaign. Now it's revolution. Let's go and share this shit. Is to take my experiences with building my business, and I use that term loosely, but building my means for sharing my ideas and message and service with the world and earning a living by doing so. You're only as good to other people as you can take care of yourself. And one of the problems that do-getters have is that they don't know how to earn money. And it's a tragedy because it's like, man, you're brilliant. Damn, you've got a lot of really good ideas. Damn, you're very good at what you do, but you don't know how to get clients. You don't know how to get customers. You don't know how to spread your message. And there's usually an energetic reason why, you know, poor bad feelings about earning money, or technically you just don't know how, right? And I spent tens of thousands of dollars for the past 5 or 6 years learning how to do what you see me doing. And I truly believe that it's the way of the future. And if you read Seth Godin's new book, the Icarus Deception, he talks about the connections economy, and that's the economy that we're moving into. And I feel like it's a part of my responsibility to help bring up the new crop of entrepreneurs in a way that they are earning a living by adding to the world, instead of that old industrial revolution mindset that you've got to take away in order to live.
Well, that goes right into the question. One of the questions people had, your number one brick and mortar fitness business marketing tip, and then it was a two-parter. What's your number one in-person selling tip?
Well, the very first thing to recognize is that no matter what business you're in, brick and mortar or digital, you are in the business of connection. You're in the business of connecting with people, and connection happens through words. So, in other words, you're in the information business. You're in the business of sharing your ideas with as many people as possible. It doesn't matter if you use the internet to earn a living, quote unquote, because you will. If you don't use the internet to earn a living in this day and age, even if you purely serve people and that's how you receive a check, then you're a dinosaur. You're gonna fade out and die. You're not going to last very long. Show me one business that doesn't have a website, and I'll show you a business that doesn't exist. You understand? So get into the mindset first that you're in the information connection business, not the service business. You think you might be in the business of counting reps and showing people how to activate their glutes, but really you're in the business of sharing powerful ideas with people so that they're inspired to come and you can count their reps and ignite their glutes. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
Get it into your head. Get it into your head that you've got to share who you are with people through the internet, via videos, via blogs, via newsletters, via Facebook, YouTube. First, it's the very first rung of what I call the non-job ladder. And then ultimately bring people into your, if your goal is to bring them into your brick and mortar business, then quickly escalate them to that portion of the ladder. This is the method that I use to build my gym. You see, so the foundation, the structure by which you build a brick and mortar business is not any different than building a digital communicative online business.
Right. So what would his other part of the question was your number one in-person selling tip. How to, he was the guy who brought this question up, says that he's been running a lot of like free camps, strength and conditioning camps, but offers to get people to come in after that camp, collects their names and emails and all that stuff, and but can't get them to come in and commit to continuing training. So what would you give to them, a tip for once you have them in person to sell to them?
Okay, now I can offer you a tip, and it's probably a tip that you've heard before. So the tips aren't the problem. Okay, everybody wants to know techniques. They want to know tricks. What can I do here? How can I manipulate this way? What technique, what technical thing can I add to this that's going to make the whole thing work? I can tell you, and you're not going to like my answer, right? Because if you want techniques, there are guys you can go to techniques for, and I can tell you some techniques. What really matters is your intention. What really matters is the root of all your strength, which is your energetic strength. And that expresses itself and is transferred to people via the passion that you can cultivate about what you're offering. I studied sales. In fact, I was the top grossing salesman at the personal training gym that I worked at when I first moved to Florida, and I built a business because I know how to do face-to-face selling. But I can tell you that according to Brian Tracy, who I studied, you want to study sales, study Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy would say that sales is a transfer of passion. How do you feel about yourself? See, if you're having a problem getting people to give you money, that might mean that you have a problem getting money. What are your ideas associated with getting money? How do you feel about that? Do you feel kind of sheepish asking someone to write a check, or can you say, hey, next time you show up, just give them a handshake. Please bring a check for $275 so that we can continue training. You see, that's called closing the deal. The problem isn't the tools and tips and techniques. It's, can you do that? Do you have enough balls to say, hey, next time bring a check. I'm happy that you enjoyed this. Is this something that can help you? Great. Here are my rates, and can I take your credit card? Because now they've got these things where you can swipe people's credit cards. Yep. You say, hey, do you have a credit card with you? It's simply closing the deal. You have a problem closing the deal, and it has to do with the size of your balls. You've got to build the courage. That's a virtue that you need to work on, is courage. It doesn't take tips, techniques, or education to figure out how to close a deal. It takes a big set of balls. Right. So next time, just say, hey, it's $275 a month. Do you have your credit card with you? I'll swipe it right here. Boom. You'll be amazed at how many people all of a sudden you're closing.
That's exactly how it goes at my gym. I used to concern myself with little details, way I was saying things to the potential customer, certain things around the gym, testimonial stuff, which I do still have things hanging on the walls and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, it just came down to being passionate in front of the parent, because I work with teenage athletes, so working with the being passionate in front of the kids and the parent, and then from there, just after the training sessions, like, what'd you like about it? Okay, great. I can help you this way because I saw this wrong, and so here's our memberships. Which way is the best for you? But it's real simple, like you're saying. Just gotta have balls to just put it out there and have passion about what you're doing. All right. The final question was from, I believe, someone over in Switzerland or over in the Europe area, and he was wondering, do you have any plans to travel to Europe for, I believe, one of your Yo Elliott live seminars?
Not in the immediate future. I'm married and I have 4 children, all under the age of 9. So leaving my wife for any more than 2-3 days with all those crazy rugrats isn't fair. So if I were to travel to Europe, I'm sure that would take a week or so. It'd have to be something that I have the time and personal availability to do. And until all of my kids are in school or, they can take care of themselves. I mean, I bathe all 4 of my children every single night. I'm still wiping butts and changing diapers. Until some of that stuff is taken off of our plate, I will definitely be spending most of my time hopping on airplanes that get me where I need to be in a matter of hours and then coming back home before the weekend's over.
Now, just final added question here at the end. Do you have any upcoming seminars that you're going to be putting on just through yourself, at your gym or elsewise?
Yeah, there are 3 things that I'm offering. The first 2 people should know about already, and I guess I could send you a link or something, or you'll see it on my blog. The very first one is the Yo Elliott Live I'm doing in Miami at the end of next month, and that should be a lot of fun because we're doing a big dinner afterwards at an all-you-can-eat Brazilian steakhouse. That should be a lot of fun. And Miami is an awesome city, so it'll be more than just shooting the shit and learning. It'll be a good time. Here in Tampa at the end of June, I think I've got 2 in June. One is the non-jobs meetup, where we'll be talking about building your non-job, and I'll be sharing my experiences and how you can build your non-job ladder for whatever business you're in. I'm shocked at how many different types of businesses we have in the revolution. And then finally, we're just putting this together now. We're doing a strength camp performance clinic at my gym, where it's strictly flipping tires and loading stones and deadlifting and learning how to use the exercises that I often talk about and how to program them for your athletes or your clients if you're a trainer.
Awesome. Well, Elliott, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your, busy schedule for this interview today. It was awesome. A lot of good stuff we covered. I'm sure all the questions that were asked by the fans will appreciate your answers to them. So, once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Art of Physical Fitness Show. And until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Check out Elliott at HulseStrength.com, Strengthology.net, nonjob.com, and as always, asking me your questions on YouTube. That is your username on YouTube, Elliott Hulse. Searching under that.
Strength Camp. Strength Camp is where my strength training questions are answered. Elliott Hulse is the one where I answer more life, philosophical, psychological type stuff.
Awesome. Well, that concludes us for today, everyone. Thank you once again for tuning in. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Cool. Thanks.